Yes, welcome to the England pod, reacting to England's win against Silvinho and Pablo Zabaleta's Albania, which got our World Cup qualifying campaign off to a winning start and kicked off the Thomas Tuchel era with a win. I'm Ali Maxwell, got George Ellick, got David Walker with me 2 or 3 minutes after the final whistle. Dave, give me one word to sum up your feelings. England under Tuchel, how did you find it?
Enthused.
Ooh.
I think would be the word I'd go for. I was pleased with it. We've won 2-0. In the second half, I started to pick up on some grumblings from various WhatsApp groups that, this is all a bit slow and like Southgate, isn't it? But forget about that. There were lots of positives. And sometimes, most of the time, in fact, these games go like that because a team comes and they have to defend and you have all the ball. And we've won 2-0 with a debut goal for Lewis Skelly, which was a lovely moment, and plenty of other positives as well, I think.
Mine's probably a synonym of that. Satisfied, I'll go with. Not overexcited, not underwhelmed, just satisfied. I thought it was fine. I think it would have been a lot to expect this team to play scintillating football after, 2.5 training sessions, after what was described as a crash course in a new tactical style. I think much of it looked a lot like watching England in a World Cup qualifier at home to Albania, and that can't be seen as a surprise. But I think if you squinted a little bit, you started to see some specific bits and bobs that we'll get into that I think do show a bit of Tuchel fingerprint. George?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think fine is probably the word I'd use. But that, these games have been England's bread and butter for a long time, beating kind of teams who are weaker than us in qualifying tournaments. And we heard Sam Atterface on the coverage rattle through the amount of goals that we had scored in our last World Cup qualifying campaign, our last Euros campaign, and the fact that our last World Cup qualifier was against Albania at home and we were 5-0 up in that game at half-time. Like, we weren't going to learn anything new here. Even had we been 5-0 up at half-time in Thomas Tuchel's first game, that wouldn't have been new ground. So you can't get overly enthusiastic about us doing what we normally do. What I would say is that kind of in preparation for this evening, I did a bit of research into Albania before the game, and it kind of only struck me. Obviously, we knew that they were impressive in the summer in the Euros. They were in that group of death with Italy, Spain and Croatia, and acquitted themselves incredibly well in those 3 games, staying in them despite coming off second best in a couple of them and drawing with Croatia. But their general form is pretty good. No one ever beats them comfortably in the last kind of 2 or 3 years. And it was, so in that sense, it was kind of an awkward opponent. And England obviously completely, they didn't allow Albania to have any real attacking threat in most of the game. There were a couple of dodgy moments that needed last kind of ditch tackles, one very good one from Ezri Konsa. But for the most part, we dominated possession. The most passes ever completed by an England side in the first half of a game on record, according to Opta, which kind of shows the control in possession. But one of the criticisms always levelled at a Southgate side was backwards and sideways passing. And frankly, when you come up against a team who sit as deep as Albania do, when you're an England side that normally come up against teams who do that, it's going to be loads of backwards and sideways passing because they are standing in front of you and stopping you from doing so. And that was the case again this evening. And as we often do, we found a couple of ways to break them down and score the goals.
Yeah, was there more high tariff Hollywood passes, long passes forward with the idea of hitting someone over the top than we might have seen on average under Southgate? I don't know how you can quickly find stats on this, but my sense was that in the first half, even if we did complete the most passes that we've ever completed in the first half of a game, there were more moments where someone on the ball decided to play a really difficult ball over the top towards generally just one person running onto it. Konsa was the first, and he made it a great pass to Bellingham over the top, who couldn't quite control it properly. Kane dropped in and did one of his insane quarterback sort of just unbelievable balls over the top to Rashford, who didn't quite control it properly. Bellingham did one. Even Kyle Walker did one, which I haven't seen very much, and I probably don't want to see too much again. But I felt, Dave, that we saw a little bit more intent. This Tuchel used the word direct specifically when he talked about what he wanted the team to be. And as George said, when you play at home to Albania, 90% of your passes aren't going to be direct, because there's no point trying to play direct passes against 10 men behind the ball in a compact shape. But I think there was still more intent to play those balls, and as we've discussed quite a lot, that excites me, because I think whether or not they come off individually, and as frustrating as it can be when a ball is played forward and is mopped up by the defence, actually I think they are quite an important part of the attacking diet, and I think they were for England tonight.
Yeah, first half, it seemed especially noticeable that the defenders and Konza, and I think Burn a little bit as well, it seems like, the intent and maybe the instruction was, can we look for a forward pass first and quickly? It's not always going to be on, but they had their heads up and they were looking, and sometimes they played it. Like that ball from Konza, like you said, was really nice, and he continued to pass, I think, quite progressively through the night. So yeah, that's good. That's good to see. They weren't satisfied and settling for, well, let's just keep the ball, let's just knock it out to the fullbacks or whatever. There was some intent there. There was some positive, belief that we should be getting the ball forward quickly. But as we've already said, it's not always possible to do that, and not always sensible to do that against a team in a low block who are going to shut down those gaps and make you go around them. And when we had to do that, we did it with patience, as you would expect from a team full of players who are used to doing that, most of them for their clubs anyway. I was pleased, especially with that first half. It did slow down in the second half, but even though we only scored 2 goals in the end, and we only went in half-time 1-0, it did look like we were on the front foot, as it were, and I liked it.
Yeah, our goal was our first shot of the game, so it wasn't like we had created too many shooting opportunities in that first period, but when it came, it was absolutely worth the wait. I think that I am prone to exaggeration, and I make no apologies for that, but I think there's an argument that Bellingham's assist here is straight into a top 20 England assist of all time.
Okay. I'm going to make you flesh out that list. I want to know what your other 19 top
20 is incredible.
Well, we're looking for post-international break content. Maybe that's one episode. Ali's top 20 England assists. It was, the
off-brand.
All evening he wanted the ball, as he does. All evening he received the ball, often in very congested central midfield or kind of number 10 type areas. He didn't drift out wide as much as I think he did during the Euros, which I think is a good thing. We have wide players, we have wingers, we have fullbacks. I don't think Bellingham needs to drift wide to get on the ball. I don't think when he gets on the ball wide, that's where he's the most dangerous or where he can do the most damage. And in the instance for the goal, the control, the rolling of the marker, and that was exciting, and he starts to roll forward and you're getting excited, but the execution of the pass is astonishing. To actually have to open up your body to work out with the side foot, the arc of that pass along the ground as well, to get the right pace on it, and to split what was basically, I think, 3 or 4 Albanian defenders, and find the feet of a player just out the outstretched leg of the defender. It's absolutely sensational from Bellingham, and he was a joy to watch tonight, I thought, George.
Yeah, he was brilliant. As you say, the assist was so good. Not just the pass, but the movement before. And that was what he brings you. He's someone who can receive the ball into feet with his back to goal, and within 5 seconds release a left back through 1-on-1. I thought the timing of the run from Lewis Skelly was exceptional as well. Every time you watch him, it feels more and more crazy that he basically wasn't or isn't a specialist left back until this season. Growing up playing mainly as a central midfield player, and now having made his first team debut in September, he's now probably England's starting left back, and it's his shirt to lose, which is just an amazing progression in terms of what he's capable of doing. And he looks so natural there too. The finish was decent. And Bellingham as well, I thought, put a really good chance on the plate for Harry Kane, which he headed wide uncharacteristically, where Rashford was down the left, he got tackled, and Bellingham, who set Rashford down that left-hand side, he's just so full of energy, and there are probably quite a lot of players who wouldn't have tracked Rashford as he did, but he was then able to pick the pocket of the defender that tackled Rashford and look up and put a perfect ball onto Kane's head, who definitely should have done better. It wasn't an easy chance, but he still headed it quite a long way wide, having got ahead of the defender. It feels like Bellingham is such a rare case for England where we've got this world-class player who thrives playing for us and loves playing for us, which is an exciting place to be given the quality around him.
I think I saw a stat tonight that Bellingham has now broken the record that was previously held by Rooney for most appearances for a player under 21 or under for the seniors. And because he's been around a long time, made his breakthrough as a young player, and just because he's just a big bloke, carries himself in such a way, you think, Christ, man, he's 21. Like, it's great. It's so good to have Jude Bellingham in this team. We've talked about him a lot on all the pods we've done in the summer and since. And every time I watch England play and every time I see Jude Bellingham, I just think this guy is the man. He is the sort of player who wins tournaments and is the guy that wins the player of the tournament. Not necessarily going to happen, but it feels like he's that sort of player that could do it and win a Ballon d'Or. He's that good. And he's such a good wriggler. If he gets that ball in tight spaces, he goes one way, goes the other. He just has a way of just coming out, emerging from scenarios where there are players around him and it looks like he's going to lose the ball. He just comes out with the ball and he knows when to stop and take a beat, like he did for that cross for Kane. A lot of players would have got that ball and just swung it in straight away, but he came back, he checked, and he puts the good cross in. He's just brilliant.
Yeah, he's got such elasticity in his hips, doesn't he? Which, as surely the stiffest man in London town, I'm pretty jealous of. It was a fantastic first goal. For it to be Miles Lewis-Skelly was just, it was such a pleasure to see. His celebration was 10 out of 10, a mixture of joy, kind of confidence, and a great knee slide, and then visible emotion and taking it all in, and not trying to be not trying to shrug it off, but also in control. And the more I see of the kid, obviously he's had a couple of high profile incidents with referees in the Premier League, but we didn't see any rashness at all. We didn't see any rawness at all. This is a guy that's a controlled individual, a controlled player.
Celebration of a man, or a boy really, who knows he belongs. There was a bit of emotion after he's had the knee slide, and it probably maybe it sort of hit home in that moment what he'd done. But it wasn't a celebration where he's sort of running off wild-eyed, like, oh my God, what have I done? I've scored for England on my debut. It was just a very calm, like, this is what I do.
He's the youngest player in England history to score on his debut. And look, I mean, there was a bit of chuntering when the squad was announced that it didn't feel fresh enough. It wasn't as fresh as people expected for what was a new era under a new manager. But two of the 10 outfield players were making their debuts for England. One of them, the youngest player in history to score on debut. The other, Dan Burn at the back, the oldest player to make his debut for England since Kevin Davies when he was 33 against Montenegro in October 2010. Burn started at left centre-back. He completed 135 of 137 passes. He looked confident, as you'd expect someone who's had the greatest week of all time. And he also had probably my favourite 2 minutes of the whole game was when he had when he got first contact on 3 corners in a row,
hit the bar,
including hitting the bar, which is absolutely hilarious. Not least because it seemed obvious when the corner's being set up that Burn's the target and Burn's the tallest man on the pitch and Burn's going to be a threat. But this is a guy whose goal-scoring record is actually genuinely terrible. Like, for any defender, let alone one that's 6'7". I know he scored last Sunday, but over his career, it's actually it's quite embarrassing how little of a goal threat he's been. So maybe there's a confidence thing and or just like feeling like he's the man now. But the confidence he carried himself with in that press conference the other day at St George's Park carried onto the pitch, and it was great to see. And I was going to say he didn't put a foot wrong. I mean, he doesn't fill me with confidence defending transition attacks, but that's pretty hard for most centre-backs, and specifically one of his size. He's just not the quickest on the turn. He doesn't cover distance that quickly. And, the way that we play, there's always going to be moments in a game where England lose the ball and the centre-backs are somewhat exposed. So it's not even really a knock on him. It's just an understanding of the player that he is, and that's not going to be necessarily the strongest part of his game. Bellingham also almost scored twice. one with a header from point-blank range. Kyle Walker hitting the byline for the first time in about 5 years, and putting in a cross that Bellingham headed, saved. Kane follow-up was unbelievably well blocked from their captain. And Bellingham also had about half an hour in, another really nice move, and he had that sort of toe poke that was saved by the keeper. So we had a good spell before half-time, after the first goal, quite a few chances, all those set plays as well. I think defensively, Dave, they only had one shot from open play, and it was from miles out. They had 2 shots, half chances at best, from set pieces. There were a couple of moments where, Konza in particular had to perform some really good last-ditch defending, and that is something that he very specifically is very, very good at. We saw it tonight.
Yeah, he was great, I thought. He was really composed in a few moments when he had to be. And, yeah, there was that last-ditch tackle after... I think Broja had come on, hadn't he? And he got in behind after a duel with Dan Burn. Really good tackle, and he was good on the ball as well. Even right to the end, he was still trying to bring it out and run forward if he had the space to do so, and try and pass forward into the feet of Bellingham and Jones and others. So he was a player that I don't think we've barely mentioned on pods up to this point, and in all the talk about who would play at the back, he sort of always feels like he's towards the back of the queue for some reason. Gahey probably thought he had the shirt after his performances in the Euros. But Konza's come in and played really well tonight. I was really impressed.
Yeah, George, just going back to the starting 11, was there anything that surprised you? Was there anything disgraceful in Tommy Tactics' first England 11? We had Konza and Burn at centre-back. We had Kyle Walker and Lewis Skelly at full-backs. We had Rice and Jones in midfield pivot, with Foden and Rashford right wing and left wing, and Bellingham just behind Harry Kane up top.
Definitely nothing disgraceful. No, I think it was a good team. I was kind of more enthused when I saw the team announced than I was when the squad was announced. I thought Rashford was really lively.
Isn't that just always the case? Because we always argue about the players who aren't going to play.
Although I also kind of enjoyed watching Jordan Henderson buzz around and demand the ball for 10 minutes at the end too, which surprised me.
Wow, he's charmed you.
Well, no, but I won't. I mean, you're 2-0 up at home to Albania with 10 minutes to go.
Mate, you should have watched Adam Morton getting overrun by that French midfield out in the under-21s game tonight.
But I thought Rashford was... I mean, it was just kind of nice to have Marcus Rashford back on the left-hand side for England. He's always done pretty well for us. It feels like he's like the prodigal son of English football who has left Manchester United and with a point to prove is happier and is kind of proving that point at the moment. I thought he was pretty lively without kind of causing too many problems, and having him available for selection and in the squad, I think puts us in a much stronger position. Feel sorry for Anthony Gordon. You mentioned Dan Burn's amazing week. Gordon obviously missed that final through suspension, and then in the last play of the game seemed to sustain quite a nasty looking muscle injury. So hopefully he's okay. Because it'd be a huge shame for him if he got injured.
I feel sorry for Gordon as well, because he had to wait so long to come on. The ball just wouldn't go out of play. He was on a touchline for about 10 minutes.
They ended up making an extra substitution. I think that probably the most interesting thing from the team selection and the way that the game went is that it was relatively fluid, but it was 4-2-3-1 from start to finish, without much by the way of experimentation in terms of system. And that suggests that Thomas Tuchel sees our squad as being a 4-2-3-1 squad. So any ideas that he was going to employ the wing backs at Chelsea, and we were going to see players out of position and the rest of it, that there was no sign of any switch to that at any stage today. And given our strength at fullback, well, certainly right back, but also with Lewis Skelly coming in, it does seem to make sense that was the case. So and it felt like Bellingham played well. I mean, the one I guess slight concern today was that it was another game where Phil Foden in an England shirt struggled to make any kind of impact whatsoever. And I'm still struggling to see how he can work him into...
Why do you think that is? Because Lee Dixon was banging on about this tonight, and he was quite critical of him. And, is it Foden's fault, or is it just a game that is quite difficult? He's going to get the ball in those positions, and again, it's...
I think when
he's not like
when
he
you're
got the ball
talking
in
about
space a lot, did he? He got it always in front of defenders.
When you're talking about like a generational talent, like someone who we're told is the most talented English footballer since Gaza and the rest of it, he's spent a lot of time on a football pitch wearing an England shirt where he's struggled to show that talent regularly. Like I do feel sorry for him in the Euros, because there were a couple of moments, one in particular against the Netherlands where he had that shot from 30 yards and we were right behind it, which clipped the outside of the post and went wide. Like, if that goes in, then he has his Saka moment, Bellingham moment that all the other guys had during the tournament. But I still think we need to see more of it. You know, he was the best player in the Premier League. He was the best player in the Premier League last season, playing for the best team in Europe last season. And when we compare what Jude Bellingham does for England pretty consistently to what Phil Foden does for England, yeah, I mean, I guess Bellingham has that position that he's made his own, and with Foden, you're kind of wondering, but isn't that in itself a detriment to Foden, where he's unable to cement a role within the team itself? So, you know, I love him, and I'm sure there will be times in his future where he does excel, but he wouldn't be the first world-class player who does it for his club relatively regularly and struggles to do so for England. And at the moment, I think we need to see more from him. He's not justifying his place in the starting 11, like, no chance.
I'd love to see him play for a club team under a different manager and just see what that looks like. Because again, it's a guy who's, you know, his north, south, east and west has been Pep Guardiola forever, and clearly it's worked for him to become a key player through an academy system at the best team in the country, winning titles and being their star man last season. But I just wonder whether it also contributes to him looking a little more lost than others when he plays for England and he hasn't got his Catalan dad on the touchline. I don't know. I mean, you know, Lee Dixon kept mentioning that the defenders were getting tight to him, and that makes it difficult for a winger, right? And it's not the case that you would want him to just keep trying to dribble past them and not be able to. But I think that's why they're getting tight to him, because I think that was an instruction, basically. Get up his arse, because he's not looking comfortable, and he's at probably what he's going to do is pass it back to Walker or Curtis Jones. And you know, it was very notable how different it was with Rashford on the other side. Now, what Rashford tried barely came off at all. You know, he tried 5 or 6 dribbles, I think, per FOTMob, didn't complete many of them. He had a couple of quite poor touches, a couple of quite poor crosses, a couple of quite poor passes. But he was definitely trying stuff. I think we do want to see that more than Foden just recycling. This was a massive opportunity for him with Saka out, with Palmer out, and he clearly didn't grasp it. He tried 1 dribble, not completed per FOTMob. 2 touches in the opposition box. When you're playing right wing for England in a game like this, and you're a left footer, so you should be coming inside and ideally occupying, you know, those half positions, as Tommy Tactics is calling them. You need to do more. I thought, you know, in mitigation, I thought the right side was not great tonight, and I think that was a bit of the alchemy of the 3 of them, by which I mean Walker and Foden and Curtis Jones, who in possession was generally the midfielder that was going out to combine with them, where I'm just not sure they're all solid players, right, and they have their own skill sets. I'm just not sure as a trio it really works, because they were all very just keen to pass to each other's feet in triangles. None of them were particularly keen to deliver a cross or play a punchy pass or dribble. And so it all felt a little bit static on that side. And, you know, that was refreshing because it was the left side that was causing me such a headache during the Euros.
You do want to see Foden come in, and there were a couple of moments when he did come in, and you want him to play a 1-2, either play a 1-2 and try and get the little return pass kind of over the top or around the corner into the box at an angle, or have a shot. And there are a couple of moments where you think, go on, just have a go. And he wasn't able to, or didn't have the confidence to. So yeah, I think it is. He'd probably be a bit disappointed, because I think he'll probably be aware that, Saka's not here, Palmer's not here. This is a chance for me to make an impact and kind of stake a claim to be that person who starts on the right, if that's the spot that he's competing with. Because at the moment, I think if Saka's fit, never mind Palmer, but if Saka's fit, you get him back in there, don't you?
Yeah, the responses to us on social media tonight, asking what listeners and followers of the England pod felt, what they liked, what they didn't like. Didn't like what we had out wide. Foden being referenced a lot on that front. Rashford a couple of times as well. Lewis Skelly just getting a lot of love, which is fantastic, as is Jude Bellingham.
I would argue that in part the reason why it's definitely Lewis Skelly, because if you look at the goal, for example, the reason why Lewis Skelly is able to make that run is because Rashford is peeled inside. So, like, I don't think in the same breath he can be like, I didn't like how our wingers performed, but at the same time the fullbacks were great, because, you know, it's one and the same. Like, we were playing wingers whose job it was to tuck inside in possession, so that the fullbacks could overlap, and it worked pretty well.
Yeah, I actually
And
thought
I do-
Foden. I was surprised how little Foden was tucking in. He seemed to always be
Yeah.
super wide. Again, not.
But as Dixon kept saying, kind of occupying the fullback and then allowing us in possession to kind of, yeah. I know. It was. There's no denying that when you have those two players on your wings, you probably want them to do more on the ball. I mean, Rashford, as you say, looked dangerous without actually executing much. With Foden, it was a classic case of when he was subbed, you're like, oh yeah, he's playing.
And Harry Kane, Sir Harold up top. If you include World Cup qualifiers and World Cup tournament matches, 26 goals in 26 appearances. He said yesterday, Dave, and you were at the presser, that he feels like his goals are taken for granted. It was hard not to feel like that was a direct shot at me, because I've been moaning a little bit about his role in the team and again, like attacking alchemy with him and his tendencies. I'm going to shut up for a while, I think, because it was a Harry Kane performance. There were times where I thought he trotted around a bit, and I would have liked to have seen a little bit more energy at the top of the pitch for England, particularly as I do actually think our intensity out of possession and in the counter press was pretty good. Not incredible, certainly not gung-ho heavy metal stuff, but pretty good. But he also played some wonderful Harry Kane passes, looked after the ball well, some good defensive headers in the first half, which can't be sniffed at. And scored an absolutely sensational striker's goal, and could have had another as well.
Yeah, I think in many ways, Harry Kane is the embodiment of England's not problems, but just how they've been in the last few years. He will get loads of goals in qualifying. We will win most of the matches. He will look really good. He will turn up to the tournament and still probably score enough goals and put away some penalties. But really, when it comes down to it, is he and is our England going to be able to do it? And he looked good tonight. I think he did look fresh. I think, he's
Had 90 minutes, didn't he?
He's really unlucky not to score two. That unbelievable block from the Albanian captain, the centre half. Kane couldn't believe that it wasn't in. And then a really nice finish. And a really nice proper centre forward sort of goal as well, shrugging off that defender, couple of touches, nice side foot into the corner. Good stuff.
I thought it was he looked so immobile last summer, and obviously he's now not playing in the Premier League, and I don't watch much Bundesliga, so I haven't really seen him playing for Bayern. I'm not too proud to admit that, but he did look more mobile today. Like there was all last summer, it was like, is he either a bit injured because when you had that back issue, or is he just on the massive decline and this is the beginning of the end for him? And it did feel like today he could shift it a little bit better. He looked a little bit less awkward out of possession. And there was also a really interesting passage of play in the second half where Bellingham, Jones, Rashford and Foden, it was the only period of the game where Albania had the ball in possession in quite a deep area amongst their defence, and we saw the press come from that kind of that force rather than from Kane himself. And that's where we've looked so bad in the past, is where Kane tries to lead the press and just can't do it. Like it's ineffective, and it means they play through us very quickly. And maybe that was a signpost as to what we're going to see when we do come up against teams who have more of the ball, is we'll see Kane given licence just to not really bother and just kind of retain his energy, and we'll see the trigger press come from those there in behind. And it worked. I mean, there was one moment where Jones actually really nearly picked the pocket of the Albania midfielder. He executed the press well. He just kind of managed to miss the ball when he was tackling him, and looked frustrated afterwards. But that might be a bit of an insight as to what we're going to see in future games. I'm
interested to see the Rice Curtis Jones midfield pairing develop over a few games. There were bits that I liked, there were bits that I weren't sure of. I'm still not convinced that they are doing. I feel like they could maybe switch roles when England are building up. Like I often think that Rice doesn't add a huge amount to the deep build-up, whereas I always think Jones, and maybe there could be an aesthetic aspect to this, because Jones looks incredibly slick and sexy on the ball and Rice looks a little more cumbersome. But it was generally Rice on the ball deeper, and Jones, when that was the case, generally reacting to whatever Bellingham was doing. If Bellingham stayed high, Jones would stay deep, but Bellingham often dropped deep, so Jones would go high and often to the right-hand side. I I don't know. I watch Rice in an England shirt, and I still wonder if we could unlock another gear to him. You know, I'm talking about a guy that, according to FOTMob, created 5 chances tonight and set up the goal for Kane, and you know, certainly didn't do anything horrendous by any means. But just with, you know, if that's going to be the starting two, the midfield pivot for the next few games, which I'm very happy with. I'm just interested to see how it might develop and how their games could complement each other better when they develop more of an understanding. There was a game in France tonight between the France under-21s and the England under-21s.
Mais non.
Dave, we were all trying to second screen it. I mean, it's quite difficult because we wanted to watch England's game under Tuchel, but it was a 10 out of 10 second screen experience in that there were 8 goals and a red card and a missed pen. England on the wrong side of a 5-3 defeat.
We went 1-0 up, didn't we, after about a minute? And then 2-1 down all of a sudden. I was flicking back and forth. I was keeping an eye on it. It seemed a bit chaotic in perhaps typical Lee Carsley under-21 fashion. The team was quite interesting, quite a conundrum to try and work out who was playing where at the start.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex Scott played right wing back, Jaden Philogene left wing back, Rico Lewis was part of the back three. You know, Carsley experimenting in this way is nothing new. And some of the starting lineups in the group stages of the 21s Euros that we won 2 years ago were, you know, had us all scratching our heads out there in Georgia. He loves a centre midfielder playing at fullback, I guess because, you know, a dominant side like England, it's often the fullbacks that have the most touches in possession, or the guys you can get on the ball in deeper areas, and so it kind of makes sense to have basically a midfield profile getting the most touches for your team. So I guess that was part of the reasoning for having Scott a right wing back, but you know, as you say, it was a messy game. I'm sure the tactics probably played a part. I note that England did have 23 shots to France's 16 and 10 on target to 7. So certainly no disgrace. A pretty entertaining game. I'll admit that I fired off a tweet when I saw McAtee put us 1-0 up, which said something like, Lee Carsley and the under-21s, it just works. And then I deleted it 5 minutes later. We were 2-1 down. Didn't want anyone to see it. George, England have got Latvia. England seniors, that is, have got Latvia on Monday. The unders have got Portugal. So we'll be back doing this once again. Any obvious changes that you think will come to Tuchel's starting 11, or anything that you would just want to see?
I think Gordon would have been one you'd want to see start. I've just seen Thomas Tuchel saying he looks injured. I thought it was his stomach, but it's his hip and it doesn't look good. So that's bad news for Anthony Gordon, who's someone who certainly deserves a start.
Good news for Morgan Rogers, I guess.
Yeah, I'd have thought so. I mean, as I say, it was very much one system rather than a massive variation today. Like, if we are ever going to be looking at playing a different system, maybe, you know, that's an opportunity to mix it up, although it's still a qualifier, so you think it's unlikely. More of the same, probably. There's no one who I can think of who you're desperate to see come in. Maybe Reece James at right back. It would be good to see him playing under Tuchel again.
I'm thinking after your Foden comments, you might want to see Jared Bowen given a go, offer some penetration.
And he did offer that when he came on. So, yeah, possibly Bowen to come in. But, you know, I guess just more of the same. It's going to be another one where we're going to have a lot of the ball. We're going to have to break down a team that'll drop off and sit deep. We'll have to do it away from home this time. And that's just, you know, we're not going to win the World Cup in these games. We probably aren't going to lose the World Cup in these games because we're very likely to qualify. So just being professional, getting the job done, and keeping people on side. Like, it feels like the reaction to today's game has been wholly positive. And Daniel Storey made a good point, tweeting it being like, maybe it's just because people like change. And I've got a feeling, had we seen that performance from a Southgate side, there probably would have been quite a lot of moaning and saying it's 2-0 against Albania. Like, it was boring, sending me to sleep stuff. But
let me tell you, the reaction. Let me tell you, there's one person that the reaction hasn't been positive from, and that's Thomas Tuchel, who has just spoken to ITV and the rest of the media and said, we can do better, we have to do better. Wasn't happy with our running off the ball. Said we needed to make more runs off the ball to try and get in behind more. Very pleased with their first 10 minutes, but then he said the energy dropped and, you know, it was difficult because Albania were really deep. But he wants us, you know, there you go. That's one of the things we know he has, and he's very demanding. Like, we've all seen those clips of him going mental in training when he was at Mainz, and it's good to see that he's not just going to settle for a run-of-the-mill 2-0.
Oh, these poor players. I've got the Ian Beale meme. I've nothing left, as he demands that they keep sprinting in the 35-degree Texas heat next summer. Well, the Tuchel era is up and running with a 1-0 win. We'll be back with a match recap very similar to this, but maybe better, after the Latvia game on Monday night. So join us for that.
Like the England performance.
I'm interested to see whether he goes for rotation in order to see other players, or whether he might, at some point soon, given how few games he has before the World Cup, start to focus on developing relationships, whether that's Rice and Jones, whether that's Walker and Foden, probably not, whether that's Konza and Byrne. It's interesting.
And that's kind of why I caught myself saying experimentation. Like these aren't friendlies, these are qualifying games. And this is the thing about appointing someone 15 months before a major tournament, is that you don't have these moments to experiment, and therefore you kind of have to play your strongest team that's available to you. So I'd be surprised if we saw wholesale changes.
What's our equivalent of making more runs in behind on this podcast on Monday? What can we do better, George? I think you can get lighting better for Monday for the YouTube.
I'm going to be in Portugal, so we'll see. I have no idea what the setup's going to be like.
Couple more
I
jokes.
Would say,
I think
laughs.
So. A bit more vibes.
Laughs.
England are top of for Group K of the World Cup qualifiers in the UEFA category.
You'll never sing that.
Latvia did beat Andorra by 1-0, so it'll be tricky opponents no doubt on Monday night. Thank you very much for listening and or watching this. Please do rate us 5-star on Spotify. It takes just 2 seconds. It makes a big difference to us. Please do make sure you subscribe to the podcast feed and to the YouTube channel as well. Hope you're enjoying what's been a really exciting launch of the England pod from our point of view over the last couple of weeks. And there's absolutely no doubt that we are bang up for this, and we want to see it through. So thanks for getting on board. Thanks for joining the England pod journey. Cheers for listening. Go well.